For those of you who are joining my channel for the first time, I am a trance channel, clear channel, galactic historian, and spiritual teacher who mainly focuses on the cosmic energies of Earth, um, the nature of the soul, the galactic nature of the soul, and how to transpose that over into your human life, making that practical for spiritual awakening. All right, so today we're going to be channeling a being called Kaia. She is a Pleiadian galactic fleet commander. She has spent the majority of her time traveling around, watching us from different vantage points, helping us, talking to us, helping us in our conscious awakening process spiritually, helping us become better humans, helping us understand what's happening on Earth versus being afraid of it. I really like her a lot, always happy to bring her through to you. And today we do have some updates, particularly for March the 23rd and the unique portal that we're going through around that time, about the time of the solstice. The whole theme being rebirthing your essence, being less afraid but more aware of what's going on with Gaia as a construct and as a soul, not necessarily Gaia as a planet. Gaia is a soul construct of all of us together, and Gaia originally meant life, not Earth. It's kind of dumbed down when people say it's just Earth. Gaia is the construct of all of us together that represents life in this unique dimensional experiencing. So that's one thing that she wanted to bring today, is giving a little bit of information so we don't continue to dumb things down in that way. Yeah. Let's see what announcements we have today. If you'll scroll to the top of the chat, if you want more channelings like this, I do them once or twice a week, sometimes more, over at patreon.com / Pamela Aaralyn. That's my handle there. And we have classes and channelings for as little as $13 a month. We also have a new tier that involves a reading that you get along with it with me. So there's so many things going on over there with classes and channelings all the time. If you want more of this, tomorrow we are bringing in a new human from the future. So I'm doing this work called Humans from the Future, and I've been remote viewing and channeling these groups of humans. And I just met one named Ethan, who is a politician for New Earth, and he is in the timeline 2070, not too far off. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, politics, it's very different by that year. So I urge you to join and figure out how that works with our free agency, and how that works and what New Earth looks like, and what politics are there that are more loving. So this should be a really uplifting, from what I'm getting so far from Ethan, very uplifting shifts have happened by then in our political systems, almost to the point where I really had to talk to him a lot in my channelings and remote viewings with him to even want to believe it. And he said, well, if you want to understand fifth dimensional constructs, you have to stop seeing politics as negative and understand more of how it can build a new Earth. And he has taught me a lot. So I'm happy to bring him to you tomorrow on my Patreon channel at 9 a.m. That's our new bright and early time. And that helps us reach people in other countries. We have a lot of people in the UK and Africa and Australia, and people who that would be like, middle of the day for them. So we don't want to do our original time, which was 1 p.m., which made everyone fall asleep. So we have that tomorrow at 9 a.m. if you want that. All right, let's get going with some of the things she wanted to talk about. She says, you've been feeling a lot of the geomagnetic shifts. The geomagnetic storms are a result of the true north changes, and the true north changes, particularly around South Africa right now. She actually had me check in on one of my friends who I didn't even know was in South Africa this morning. She was like, well, you might want to see where she is and see how the storms are doing down there. But I assume that friend is fine because she didn't mention anything. But there was a slight 0.4% true north shift, and it went in the direction that would cause a storm in that area and a massive solar flare. And that's over the past few days that she recognized the true north shift and how it affected South Africa. So that's one thing. that it particularly specifically affected that. And it was needed, and she says, going back to the idea of Gaia being a construct, it is a soul construct of life in our realm, in this unique experiencing. And the shifts that you saw in Madagascar, particularly, were a result of that, not a cause of that. So she needs you to understand that the only thing that's waking us up, and my friend and I were having this conversation, I was a little bit concerned about what Kaia was saying, that the only thing that's waking us up is the true north shifting and the geomagnetic storms. The earth core, so many people were excited and confused about why the earth core was slowing down. And then over the course of the last 2 years, it just stopped. The earth core stopped spinning. And that's unique because what Kaia has explained to me about that is that we're going through a bit of like a wormhole. And as opposed to all these people that are still fighting about Earth being flat, Earth being round, Earth is being squished in through this dimensional experiencing. And it becomes fractionalized in that moment between what, from the etheric standpoint of what this means for us individually, people are going to start to have different ideas of what is truth for them, different experiences of the geomagnetic storms, different ideas of their individuation and their consciousness versus how they can help the collective consciousness and the entirety of Gaia consciousness. And we appear to be battling between fighting for a unique free agency, and free agency, Kaia wants you to understand, is given to you in your sovereign right in the Christed consciousness. But it is a verb, not a noun. And in this consciousness, when we're going through this wormhole and all the round earthers and flat earthers are arguing with each other right now about this, about what Earth feels like and looks like and what they can understand in quantum physics about Earth's, how Earth presents itself to us, we're flattening out our consciousness as well, our life consciousness altogether, not just individually. So everything that we thought was truth, both in physics and science and history, it's being brought up to the surface in the way that flat water, where everything had densified and all the particles had sunk down to the bottom. She says, when you stir everything up like that, if you put water through a wormhole, the same thing would happen. It would feel flat and boring. And then as it comes out of the wormhole, it would be like shaking up the glass. Everything fractionalizes and then splits off again and comes back together as the dust settles into the water, as the debris settles into the water and comes down to the bottom, she says. So in this way, our consciousness is separate and whole, separate and then together again. And then we start fighting for individual freedoms. We start arguing about sovereignty. We start talking again about what quantum physics is showing us, and people who want that density don't believe the quantum physicists that are teaching you some very true things right now. There's a lot going on in terms of, I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch my recent channeling of who I call my A-team, a group of scientists. And Stephen was in the background being pretty quiet. Stephen Hawking is one of the beings crossed over who comes through that team, and he's one of the newer ones. And he was in the background going, guys, I predicted this. I predicted that the end of this unique quantum field, this universe, I predicted when it was going to happen, and I predicted our long journey towards that. Now, thankfully, he didn't speak up and frighten everybody because it is a long journey. It's not in our lifetime, the end of that. But we do need to be thinking about this for, I'd say, people who have children right now. You'd be thinking about this for their children, right? According to Kaia and all the galactic beings on her team as well. You'd be thinking about this for, our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren in the timeline that we have right now, okay? So many people are thinking, well, just because we're fine, our individual lives and our children are somewhat fine, towards about the time my children are my age right now, they're going to be super concerned about global warming in a bigger way, not necessarily in the way that you think. Earth is greening, according to Kaia and the Pleiadians, Earth is greening and is becoming more habitable, not colder. So the places where it's super cold right now will become a little warmer, and the places that are too hot will become a little bit more habitable and not super cold either, but just more habitable in our lifetimes. But unfortunately, the places that are experiencing drought will experience more drought, and the places that are experiencing rain will experience more rain. This is just a natural part of that, of what she's bringing through to us. I always like to go through and take what the galactic beings are telling me, and I'll go look it up. I'll go do my research on it just to make sure that it aligns with current science, and that scientists don't come to my channel and freak out. But if they say something different, I'm going to present that as well. So in today's channeling, there is something a little bit different, and also a little bit something you would expect, she says, about where we're heading in these geomagnetic shifts. So the solar flares, according to Kaia, are actually toning down. They're not speeding up. They're calm right now. And the solar flares that we're having don't really have a big effect, except on the emotional body of humans. And they're not having so much of an effect on Mother Earth herself. The way that they are affecting Gaia as a construct, not an Earth, but as a soul life construct. That's all of us together. Gaia is the construct of our plants and animals and humans, all of us together. These geomagnetic storms are pushing us further through that wormhole. It flattens out, densifies our consciousness, makes us struggle to maintain density, and then pushes us more into opening our minds, opening and pushing our body's limits for our health as well. She says it pushes our minds past our own belief systems that we've been hanging on to. So you'll notice this pattern of whenever we have a strong geomagnetic storm, that we will have these mild solar flares, but these solar flares where people are telling you to be afraid, she doesn't want you to be afraid. They're not that excruciating. They're not really that terrible right now. So you don't need to be afraid of the solar flares being the cause of Earth having more droughts. That's not what's going on. The solar flares are working towards you densifying and then lifting your energy field up again, separating and then coming together in your belief systems. So we individuate our consciousness and our truths, and we bang out our truths and our rights to have them. This is how this affects our mental state of consciousness. And then we go, that's not helping me to bang that out all the time and to constantly be fighting for my truth. That's not helping me to believe that I'm disempowered and that I need to individuate consciousness and struggle for my rights and sovereignty and fight for my power individually. And it's not helpful to think that power has ever been taken away from me, because it's not true. So when you give over your power to your governments and political things, that disturbs the Pleiadian Council, because they actually don't have control over your peace. They don't have control over where your politics are going. Your political systems, according to Kaia and the council, are falling apart. So how can a falling apart, almost dead system have control over you? You really need to hear us right now on this. All right? And be less concerned about the solar flares and more aware, not afraid, but aware. She said that's a different A word. And the F word, fear, we need to just kind of pull that into some other word. She said, create another word, awareness instead of fear. And it's fun to be aware, right? As opposed to being afraid. And these geomagnetic shifts are affecting the southern part of our world more than they're affecting the northern part right now. They affected the northern part with the true north shifting. That was more in effect this time last year. And we had this massive storm, this past winter as well. And then an interesting storm in the fall going towards Michigan and places like that around the Great Lakes. And then it calmed down, right? So now we have it going in and like continuing that same direction, but headed towards Africa and then moving back a little bit more southwest, going up again and affecting countries in that area. So you'll get more volcanoes, more earthquakes, more great windstorms. There's a lot of solar wind going on, according to Kaia, that we need to be aware of in these true north shifts. And we also need to be aware of true north, what the spiritual metaphysical example of True North is and what it equates to for us. What we're doing is we're bringing all of our individual truths and coalescing them into a system that is New Earth, right? That is New Earth. It isn't New Earth politically. It's New Earth without religion, but with the right to if you want. Most people just don't choose it. It's New Earth in perfect peace. And right now we're in this place where fighting for self-love, fighting for our consciousness, fighting for our rights. And you can't fight for love. That's an oxymoron. You don't fight for love because love is a verb that is an and consciousness that opens a doorway to perfect peace between what you believe and between what another person believes. So in this way, yes, self-love opens all doors right now, but it's self-love that affects and implements peace amongst your neighbors, amongst your family, amongst your friends and loved ones, not just for you. So we're out of the whole, I need my protection and boundaries and shielding stage, New Earthers. We're out of that. We're out of resistance phase and we're dissolving illusions, even illusions that have come up in our spiritual communities. There's been a lot of what Kaia calls spiritual bullying going on right now. I don't know if you've observed it as well. But this idea of this is what's going on and this is what my guides or whatever tell me, and this is the truth for all of you. And if you don't like it, people start fighting each other and saying different things online in particular, but in spiritual communities, we're dissolving our illusions and people that are bullying are less followed, less observed. They're not as supported, right? Yeah, so we're developing these new hubs of consciousness right now, according to Kaia and the Pleiadian Council. And these new hubs of consciousness support other belief systems. So you will have a new earth, spirituality in religions, and also religions falling apart in spirituality that was made into a religion, those cult constructs really collapsing this year. Right? So there's a bit of a invocation that she wants to give to you that she brought to me this morning when I was trying to understand having individual consciousness but working with the alleged other consciousness and working together with other belief systems. She said to me, in every moment you can choose to understand, not necessarily to agree with, but to see love in another person's belief system, to see peace in another person's opinion, to observe another person's opinion without judgment of it. So she gave us an invocation this morning, and here it is for those of you who want to write it down. I choose again. I choose now to remember that I am the one loving construct. I am the universal soul. I am the one who has both sought truth and found it. And I will find what is creatively relevant for my growth, and I will support the individual and collective growth for all other beings. So she said it in multiple ways to me, but ultimately speaking, we need to stop fighting each other is the biggest message that I have today. That's what's going to help us in our concerns over the impending geomagnetic storms. That is going to help us understand as True North begins to shift. We're going to have some devastating things. And if you don't believe that, go back to my last predictions channeling. I do one every year, and this year's in particular that I did for this whole year. A lot of those things have come true already, and some of them are yet to come true, but will. And these are just different ways of things that we're aligned to, and hopefully we can shift some of these things. But I don't want you to be afraid of these geomagnetic shifts and True North shifting. Just because we're having more volcanoes, more floods, more droughts, more fires this year, doesn't mean that we need to get scared about what that means. But we need to combine our individual manifestation abilities, our individual forgiveness abilities of ourselves with other belief systems and other constructs, as opposed to fighting. We're still fighting to awaken people that don't want to wake up, right? Do you know the concept of the backdrop people that Dolores brings in every now and then and teaches us about? Those are other versions of us in other time constructs coming through to pretend that they're unawakened, and they're pretending they're playing a role. So we can't struggle to make the world wake up and just say, you have to wake up. That's my whole goal, is to wake up backdrop people. They're not there to wake up. There are other fractionalized portions of your soul operating in various timelines that are really trying to wake you up, to trying to get you to wake up enough to stop trying to make everybody in your consciousness, in your way, in your truth, right? So this is the year that Kaia says we really need to choose to remember that we are one, that we've sought truth and we found it, and now we join our truths. We join our truths with other people, okay? That is what is going to help us further with these geomagnetic storms and the shifting of true north. Just that. If we shift just that, that's going to be huge. Yeah. Questions. Let's go towards questions. It's interesting. I can see in certain things I can see, like I need my glasses to see far away from the screen, but in order to see close up to it, I don't need them. And that's changed. I don't even get new prescriptions anymore because it keeps changing. Are you guys going through that as well with the shifting of the cones and the rods in the eyes? I have an astigmatism, so that could be what's going on as well. All right. First question. Let's go with questions for the Pleiadian Council. This is the more fun part of the work that we do. Can you see her or hear her? Both. What she likes to do, a lot of these councils like to just speak through me, but today I'm just sitting here repeating some of the things she's been channeling through and giving you her messages and trying to describe to you what she feels about it. Sometimes I trance, but I like to save the trancing for every now and then. It's very draining. Aren't there backdrop people who are still asleep? She says yes, and in that moment, they're still awakening those who are pretending to be awake. So we have that construct as well, people who are pretending to be awake, but they just took the judgment construct and started pretending to be awake and judging others. You're doing the same thing, she says, except in the spiritual realm. So for people who are unawakened, let them be unawakened. Support them, love them. Your job is not to wake them up. They are beginning to wake themselves up or to choose to remain asleep. And there will be, she says, there will be an earth construct. There will be a construct that never wakes up. And some people can't wrap their head around an earth construct that just never does it, never wakes up. That doesn't. There will always be a third dimensional construct of earth that does not want to wake up. Can you get that from her today? Can you hear that loud and clear? That we have moved into another 4D, 5D, almost 6D shifts, some people. And you're still wanting other people to join you while they're trying to hold the 3D construct still. So it's not that we're shifting and then there won't be one anymore. There'll be a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and so on and so on. Right? I really love fourth and fifth, but I need to work with people who are in third, and I'm not trying to wake them up. I'm trying to be more accepting, less judgmental, more loving. I'm trying to shine light by understanding their truth, by being compassionate, by finding relevance and connection. And those are things that Kaia teaches me, right? But I need you to hear that there will be an earth that does not wake up ever. She said it like that, ever. She's doing her hands like this. Some people think that everybody's meant to wake up, and they're not. If that were true, backdrop people wouldn't exist. Or ask them to just drop one off. I don't know what you mean. When you say, next question, when you say join our truths, can you explain that? So in this consciousness, as Earth is like being pushed through this very tight wormhole space, in that moment, your truth is true for you. Their truth is truth for them. That is the and consciousness. You can experience relativity. It may not be truth, but it's relativity and connection with another person. It's true for them in their unique vessel and their experience of awakening, right? Everyone awakens in their own time construct. Everyone awakens in the way that they know how. Sometimes it's all at once, and sometimes it's just not, right? So that's what it is. How can we notice backdrop people? She says there's just an energy that they're there in the background, not necessarily to cause issues, but they're there, and that you just don't feel the soul life in them. You just can't feel it. There's like a dead look in the eyes, and it's not tired from a long work day. We can't go around judging everyone as background people either, but they're just very in the backdrop of your life, doing their thing, right? And it's very interesting because Kaia says when most people wake up, they want all the backdrop people to wake up, but the backdrop people are there for you, not the other way around. They're there to help you wake up more. Are there negativities trying to affect Earth in the awakening? Kaia says there is a lot less intervention at this point based upon the shield that was put in place by the Galactic Councils, particularly the Galactic Council of Nine came together to create that for you, that concept of non-intervention. However, some people want intervention and they're allowed that unique individual experience. They want intervention negatively and positively. And people have grown in their sovereignty and consciousness to the extent that if they want to choose intervention, they can choose intervention. Right? Yeah. Can you be married to a backdrop person? Most of the time you're not, Kaia says. Most of the time you won't choose that. It would be mostly they're in your life, but not so directly there. You could see them perhaps as people in your kid's school system, or you might see them also as people that you don't just really interact with on a daily basis. It's not common that there would be any reason for you to experience a backdrop person in that personal way. There's nothing really that you can gain from that in that way. They're there to teach you something else, not to learn from them. They're there just to play a role of non-intervention in your life. And they're there just to be there, just to be there. And spiritual people wake up and she says, we want to be saviors to them and we want to do all these things. And that's no worse than what everyone's doing in religion when they're trying to convert you. So consider that. Jenny question, she says, I am a classroom elementary teacher. Am I still in the right place? This work holds so much light and darkness at the same time. Kaia says you are the teachers of this planet are needed more than anything, more than the scientists, more than the politicians, more than people who are just out to make money. The teachers of the planet, the teachers of our children, the teachers, the healers, the musicians, the artists, the woodworkers. They are crafters of the soul. You are needed now more than you would ever possibly understand, and more than you will ever know, and more than she can ever verbalize to you, she says. So yes, you're in the right place. And thank you. Because my children are in the school system and they are a pain in the butt. And we need teachers like you, you know what I mean? To really guide these special, like my kids have unique needs. And they need teachers who care, right? One of my kids with a little bit more unique needs, he tends to forget something, and he's in band and he forgot a concert the other day, and that's like half of his grade. And this is so hard for him. He's got to go in and talk to the director today. And he is so nervous. I thought he was like about to have a panic attack in the car. And I was explaining to him, because this teacher is so amazing. And I had talked to him on the phone yesterday, and the teacher said, I really hate to stick a kid with a bad grade who's really trying, a kid who's just really trying to just stick them with that bad grade just because of an honest mistake. And I said, well, is there any way to make the grade up? And he said, of course, but I need him to come to me, not you as the parent. I need him to. So I talked to Eli about it, and he said, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. That's what he and Emmy say when they're scared. That's terrifying. And I could feel Kaia behind us, sitting there in the back seat of the car, kind of guiding me on how to talk to him. And she said, tell him he's just a person. He's just a person who probably missed classes and made mistakes when he was his age. And he was like, yeah, true. He's like, but I don't know how to make it up. He's going to ask me, how do I do it? I don't know how to do it. I said, well, it'll give you a chance to think of a way. And he felt like he needed something very specific to say. And these are the things that, our kids who have a little bit more anxieties and things, they struggle with knowing exactly how to approach teachers and how to approach authority figures. And we need teachers who understand this in our school system. And he was one of these kids who, when he joined marching band this year, he was not doing well. And I went to the teacher, and he's like, I don't know how to work with him. And he's just not really, he shows up, he's trying so hard, he's always here, but he's not making it very well through this. And I don't know what this teacher did to spark passion in my kid, but at the end of that season, he ended up winning an award, like at their state band competition, at their state marching festival or whatever. He ended up that he was nominated for this award, and the award was most devoted, because he was always the person that no matter what would try. And I know that it was something that the teachers do. These are things that the teachers do for these awakening children. The teachers do this for them. That's why you're needed. He stuck it out. He kept trying, but he was doing that because that teacher was invoking power in my kid. Like he was doing something to inspire him. He was doing something to make him want to keep showing up. And it was loving stuff. Because my kid, he's stubborn. He's not the type of kid that's going to be, if you fuss at him, he's out. So it certainly wasn't like some negative discipline. Right. So we should all be teaching, but teaching in ways that provide equality is what Kaia is saying. So we teach in ways that promote equality, that remind a person of their sovereignty and of their power, that help another person explore their truth, that help another person understand teamwork, not just the individual power of what makes sense to that person, but we should be teaching how to inspire each other and how to be there for each other. What instruments does he play? He plays all the instruments in the percussion line. When you're in percussion in high school, they'll teach you to play everything in the line, just so that if one kid gets sick, another kid can do everything. But for marching band this year, he played synthesizer. But for concert, he plays a bunch of things. Yeah. You love helping the students. We need more teachers, not just spiritual teachers, all kind of teachers, particularly trade teachers that Kaia's been talking to me about, us needing more trade skills with the direction that we're going. We need more woodworkers, home renovators, home builders that are not a part of these big building systems that charge you a lot of money. We need innovative builders who understand the concept of earth domes and new earth building materials, because according to Ethan, who I'm channeling tomorrow from Humans from the Future, we're going in a direction where we're going to be using more sustainable materials because we have to, not just because we want to. Right. And we start to employ more small business owners and independent contractors and subcontractors who know how to build homes that help us store water better, that help us with where we're going with. We're going to have free electricity. You're not going to believe some of the things that Ethan has told me, and Kaia backs it up too. She says, I can see where you're going with that. I could see that being a huge possibility. We're going to have free electricity. Everyone's going to have that by 2075. Beginning in 2070, we'll have like everyone, not just something that we can buy for a lot of money, but everyone will have accessibility to the concept. And we can build that into our homes. And we'll be able to save rainwater and purify it with cheap but well-made and affordable systems. So these are the directions we're going according to Kaia. Whenever I talk to the humans from the future in my remote viewing and channeling work with them, I always bring it back to Kaia and to the Galactic Council and to Dolores, to all my people, and say, what do you think about this? And they've really been backing that up. So I'm excited about my children being able to have that, right? We don't have accessibility to living longer, but like I won't be alive in 2070, but some of you listening today will. Yeah. Strawberry Rhubarb Tarot says, and as a teacher told my kids, my first priority is to keep safe. Second is to teach you about your relationship. What do you mean by relationship? Like their relationship to society, to the human conscious collective? Yeah. We're deeply worried about individual safety right now. And what we need to be doing instead is teaching our kids more about awareness of the world, awareness and how to surrender fully into allowing light as opposed to being afraid of everything. Right? You feel her on that? It's really an important concept for us to stop teaching fear in our schools, but start in teaching safety in alignment with empowerment and sovereignty. Yeah, what do their homes and gardens look like? Both Kaia and Ethan, who I'm channeling tomorrow on Patreon, they both agreed that we have more. There's a new system. It's not aquaponics, it's not hydroponics, but it's a new system that started with a combination of both of those two, but is significantly different than both of those two. Like the concept is right, but we develop a concept that began with hydroponics and aquaponics for gardening. And we have both community gardens in big cities and small cities in suburbia and rural areas alike in the future by 2070, according to both Ethan and Kaia. And we have individual gardens, and we're taking from our individual gardens and giving them to the community gardens as well. So we have both of those. We don't have as many grocery stores that aren't community operated. We don't have these big, like what you're out here in the West where I live, there's like City Market, which is owned by King Soopers and Kroger. And we don't have these small places being run by bigger sheltered corporations above them. We don't have that whole concept going on anymore by the year 2070. It's all town members doing it. Each town has one, and they're individually doing that together, and they make all their own choices. And so we don't have too many, the same type of totalitarian agriculture. We don't have that anymore. People still raise like cows and pigs and things, but they raise them in smaller groups, like 1, 2 to 5 cows at a time. And they do so lovingly, and they do so on their own properties, or the co-op will have a property where they have up to 5 or 6 cows as well. People eat less meat. They eat less meat, but they do still have it. It's totally different. It's not industrialized farming. The whole concept is different by 2070. Yeah. Kaia gets this question a lot. Iva says, I have a lot of indicators in my natal chart that I'm of Pleiadian starseed origin. Can she know if I am or not? She says you will know by your degree of compassion, your degree of your capacity to find love in every single circumstance and every single thing, that you will find that love first before you judge. And the only way you judge is to discern what's relative in your creative choices. So you will know that, and you'll know if you know what we're talking about and you say, that's me, then you're likely of that Pleiadian origin. But it's more that we are seeded from etheric DNA of Pleiadians, that we all have that to a certain degree in us, even if it's further down the line. And we can all find that. The reason why Kaia and the Pleiadian Council work with us and speak to us and through us is because we're all looking for that etheric seed of love, right? We're all looking to find, like Pleiadians, they'd never really stop smiling or loving. I'm more Lemurian Lyran than I am Pleiadian in my starseed nature. So you'll find me being a lot more serious, like Lemurians do most of the time. We're super intellectual and serious and a little bit more sciencey. But I also love to have fun, and I could work on the Pleiadian side of me that needs to laugh more. But you can tell a Pleiadian because they're constantly smiling, they're constantly laughing, and constantly just like you love to be around them. They're like the fun of life. And they can find innocence in things, and they can teach you to find innocence in things. Will we be eating lab-made meat in the future? Well, according to the human from the future that I'm channeling tomorrow, who is Ethan, he says that some do and some don't, that we have by 2070 a small degree of people eating this lab meat, but it has created a lot of um what's the word you're using there? Not a word I know. Say it differently. He says it's created a lot of problems because they're still testing the side effects of that. So there are, by 2070, some side effects that people are starting to find out about, and that there were a lot of peer-reviewed trials about people who eat this meat and their susceptibility. And the susceptibility, this is hard to find and test for, but they have a susceptibility towards strokes. He says not necessarily cardiac events, but like myopathies in general. Not all cardiac events, though. Not every specific one. And there was just this deeper degree of people, and they were trying to single that out as is it because at that time there's a lot of testing going on side by side with this, and that testing is not. This is where I wish that I had a Rumble channel because he's saying stuff I can't really talk about here, but there's some side by side testing going on a certain medication by 2070, and I'm sad that it takes up until 2065 to even get that testing started. But there's a lot of evidence against a certain medication that a lot of people had around our time frame. And they're trying to determine if some of these myopathies are related to that medication or if the myopathies are related to the lab-grown meat. And they're finding like it's both. It's both. And some people are saying, well, it's this, and no, it's that, and no, it's the medicine, or no, it's the food. And it's both is ultimately what they find out. So Sedona's going to be very dry in the future, according to Kaia. Unless you live, like really the only places that survive out west in terms of drought in the future by 2070 are people who live by a river. Like you're really living by the river. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate your support of the channel. So it's really by 2070, there's a lot of powerful things happening in terms of the geomagnetic storms and drought, but simultaneously, it's hard for people to just eat fruit and meats when they're still in such a drought. But the people who are living by rivers get a lot more access because the earth is greening, and there will be a lot more of what we're going through right now in the west of the what do you call it? When it snows and the mountain snow melts from there, there's more of that then than there is now. So that increases, and we have interesting things like landslides, but then simultaneously when it stops, it completely stops, like for the whole season. And it stops in ways that things just dry up and we get these fires, right? So we have a very short planting season, so that makes it more difficult, not for the fruits, but that come off of trees, but for the fruits and vegetables that would come from the ground, in terms of like gardens and whatnot, bush and gardens, and the lower hanging fruit that like strawberries and things of that nature. So that's going to be difficult by then. Yeah. Bless the food. You can make the most of it by bringing the light into the food through you. Yes, and we still need to make changes, Kaia says about that. We can't just bless and hope. We've got to bless and do. We got to create new systems together. Anyone that can start their own garden this year, even if it's just from pots on your balcony or in your kitchen window, anything you can do will be helpful this year. Next question, could we be awake even though we do not remember past lives? Kai's like this. She said, I don't know how many times and how many ways to tell you this, but not everyone is going to remember your past lives. It doesn't mean you're not awake. Not everyone is going to become clairvoyant or clairaudient or operate in a psychic sense through your six senses, and it doesn't mean you're not awake. You will find other ways to help Earth, to help others, to transcend together. Perhaps you're not clairvoyant, but you're exceptional with writing. Perhaps you don't remember your past lifetimes, but you create beautiful music that awakens people. You create beautiful paintings and you don't know what they are, but suddenly people become awake when they see your work and you don't know why. Stop waiting until you can explain the why and the how to do these new pioneered forms of creativity. It's the artists and the poet, the writers, the woodworkers, the people who are expressing art through their bodies. You are the new awakened souls right now. And you don't need to be psychic or clairvoyant or able to access your Akash to be awake. That's an old way and it's still relevant for many. But there are more being born right now that are the new pioneers of creative awakening art. This is more important right now. We have enough psychics, she says. We have enough psychics. Right? Will people stop smoking cigarettes? She says that according to her work with Ethan, and he told me the same thing, he told her and showed her the timeline of cigarettes being gone completely off the market by 2069. No one even gets they're so deadly that no one sells them anymore. Unfortunately, people need a go-to, and they found some similar things in e-cigarettes way before then. And they go off the market too. That putting anything in your lungs, whether it's nicotine or not, or even if it's essential oils, that it's devastating to the inner lining of the lungs and the, what do you call them? The areolae, the little sacs in the lungs. Putting stuff in there that's not air is devastating if you do that over and over again, whether it's nicotine or not. So that's something that starts around 2060, and by 2070, e-cigarettes, vaping in general, regular cigarettes, rolled cigarettes, it's all just people trying and trying, but they're just not. Yeah, it's illegal by then. Why do we need that anymore? It's so much cancer causing. Unfortunately, we still have alcohol by then. Yeah. People are allowed to use the sacred tobacco herb if they are of indigenous nature or for medicinal purposes. But it's not completely illegal to get sacred herb, but you have to be really using it during sacred rituals and for sacred purposes to be able to use it by 2070. People Still use cannabis, but there's been a lot of ties. There's a lot of warnings by 2070. It's legal for everyone, but there's a big warning that says, and this still has been proven to cause disastrous health effects, particularly for your lungs whenever you're taking in either via vaping or smoking. But it's highly advisable that edible cannabis is really a big deal, like in terms of people like it and use it a lot in 2070. So, all right. Thank you so much for listening to Kaia and for letting me bring Ethan in a little bit. He's one of my Humans from the Future group that I recently met and been working with this past week. Later today, we're going to be interviewing Ruben Langdon from Gaia's interview with EDs, Extra Dimensionals. He has a show there, and he is incredible. And he likes to link. He's doing some work with crystal skulls right now to link knowledge of the ancient past with our future. And I like to work the future. So I'm sure that we're going to be having some powerful conversations today at 4 p.m. Mountain Time with Ruben Langdon. Thanks for coming back for that. And tomorrow we're channeling Ethan for all tier levels over on Patreon at 9 a.m. So that link is up there. Please, please, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow. Right? It helps me grow. Thank you so much. It helps me reach more people. The more we can like, subscribe, and share. So thank you, thank you, thank you for listening today and tuning in. And I'll see you later this afternoon. Bye.